we're back on Campaign de Cuellar, episode 2.
Welcome back, everybody.
There's a lot going on with this campaign.
Doc has me running around ragged, but we're good. Now, tell me about you. There's a lot of highlights. You've done a lot this week.
I went to that Lupe event on Friday. They had a really knowledgeable and interesting panel, and I learned some things I didn't know about how SNAP cuts are going to affect us here in the community, how Medicaid cuts are going to potentially affect us as well. So what was really interesting was learning how people are drastically affected by this. SNAP doesn't necessarily give a lot of money, but it can be enough to where people basically depend on it to especially make it through the rest of the month, especially the last 8 to 10 days. Sometimes people run out of money and they're just relying on the food bank. So there was a story of a woman who actually was a very hard-working woman, 2 jobs, and her benefits went from $150 to $12 a month. So that gives you a sense of how people generally are the type that are working hard. It's just that they're not making enough money and they do need some help in order to make it and to eat for the rest of the month, essentially. Otherwise, they may have to depend on the food bank or some other help that they can get from the community.
But yeah, you've been really around meeting a lot of people.
Yeah.
Within the district.
It is really interesting to see how passionate people are and how invested they are in the community. And one thing that they brought up at the Lupe event was that we need elected officials who actually listen and who understand the issues. So that really just reinforced what we're doing already.
Yeah, that's the team slogan, the people's race,
yes.
Right?
So we're going to book up more things. But right now we're starting to basically do the strategy of meeting people.
You know, when somebody runs for a race, they always want to know why. Yeah. What made you decide to run?
So I thought about this recently because the slogan often comes up of God, family, country, and that really is what lit my fire in 2022. I actually showed you the messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we had a lot of family messages about God, family, country, and how that was very upsetting to me that slogan was used as like a Republican slogan. It bothers me that God, family, and country is being associated with a specific political party or a specific ideology. Like, I don't agree with that. I don't think that God, family, country is synonymous with any party or ideology. Like, I don't think it's synonymous with Republicans, with conservatives. I think there are people of all parties, all ideologies who believe in those values. So you can be progressive. You could be libertarian. You could be Green Party, and you're for God, family, country. So that it was very upsetting to me because I feel that some of the candidates have very specifically said, like, Democrats don't have those values. Like, that's super offensive. I mean, we could go through all 3. You know, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not anti-God, anti-faith. And I've been talking to you and other people that are Democrats and you all are very pro-God, pro-faith.
Absolutely. You know, being a devout Catholic, it's like, what do you mean? We can't believe in God too, or we're not doing that, or we're not showing you?
Family. How are we anti-family? Like, how am I anti-family? Like, I have a very large family, like a lot of us here in South Texas. I have a lot of extended family that I talk to, that I keep in touch with. Honestly, even my ex-husband's family are still my family. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of people in South Texas. We have massive families and we keep in touch with and love the most extended family members. So I don't understand how we could be anti-family in general just because we're Democrats.
Yeah, I think the area in really Texas, it's all about family, no matter what side you are, no matter what color you are. And I know you're constantly in touch with your brothers.
Right.
And with your mom, and you're blessed with your grandparents still around, and of course your daughter.
More specifically for me, I have 4 younger brothers who are very influential in my life that I talk to a lot, that we do a podcast with. Well, I do it with 2 of my brothers. As we talked about before, like, I literally have been thinking about my family and helping my family since I was 18 years old. And I continue to think about how to help my family every single day. So I don't know, just very, very upsetting to be told that your party is not for family.
And then you're for country because you're stepping up.
Well, and I think country is a lot more than that.
Right.
I'm for freedom. I'm for the Constitution. I'm for the country that the founders wanted. So I don't understand how I'm anti-country or how any Democrat could be construed as anti-country. I mean, obviously there are people that are very different. There could be some anarchists, but I feel like most people I know who are Democrats are pro-country.
Well, so when you heard that, that just lit the fire under you and was like, you know what?
That lit the fire under me that certain people were very much about words and not about solutions. And it continues. There's a candidate right now in 34 using that same slogan.
And we've spoken about this a lot, about solutions.
Right.
Because medical providers, you have to find a solution.
It's possible that because I'm an ER doc, I think of things in terms of making a diagnosis and coming up with a treatment plan. And so very upsetting to me when you just want to use words and you don't have any solutions, because I want to know what's a diagnosis and what's a treatment plan. So very specifically with Monica de la Cruz, she doesn't really have any solutions. I've been looking at some of her posts recently. She'll say, I'm for strong families. But what is your actual treatment plan for that? I don't see any treatment plans, any solutions with Monica de la Cruz and a lot of Republicans.
Well, it's funny you're an emergency room doc, because some people would suggest that we're in a sort of emergency of our country. So you're quick to want to get those solutions.
Right. And not only am I wanting to get solutions, I don't have a choice as an ER doc. I have to find a solution. Like, I can't get a patient and be like, well, I don't know. I've got to figure out what to do. So my mind is always thinking in that way.
And I guess for some listeners who are not familiar with medicine, an ER doc runs the whole emergency department.
Right.
When you're on shift.
Yeah. So you run the whole ER. The nurse practitioners, the PAs, the nurses, the techs come to you. You have to make the final decision on everything. And you have to figure things out in some kind of reasonable way. So if someone comes with eye pain, you can't just say, oh, okay, well, just go to the eye doctor.
Right.
You got to figure out as much as possible what's wrong with the person's eye. And then depending on what you determine, then a treatment plan.
So that's the method that you're using for your campaign.
Right.
And should you get elected, we speak about the topics all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a solution for everything. But I think also your strategy is, yes, there's a solution to everything, but you're not expert in everything.
Well, I think that's just the way that I'm trained.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to know everything. Sometimes I have to consult a urologist or a neurosurgeon. There are certain procedures I can't do either. I can't do surgeries. So that's my thought process with everything. I basically know my limitations and when I need to consult someone or need to refer someone out. Well, we have the 3 core issues because we really want to focus on how to improve people's lives. Obviously, there are a lot of issues, but we want to focus on the economy, healthcare, and education. Looking back to almost the beginning of my life, there was actually something big that happened that was related to the economy here in the Valley. I remember when I was about 4 years old, my grandparents left. Grandparents on my dad's side. They had to move away to Kerrville because there wasn't enough work here. And so they moved away. Like they never came back after that. I mean, obviously they visit, but they moved to Kerrville permanently in about 1985 because there weren't enough construction jobs, and they found a construction job up there. And as a result of that, like a lot of my family lives in the Kerrville, Bernie, San Antonio, Round Rock area. It's also sad for me because I was the first grandchild, and so all of my cousins are in that area.
Yeah. So you missed out on that opportunity of growing up close to those grandparents.
Yeah. And so I think we kind of see similar things now.
Right.
Like this economy really doesn't have a lot of diversity of different jobs, different careers, and also the wages are low. That persists. If you go to San Antonio, if you go to Austin or Houston, the wages are better. So people in general are going to find a reason to leave.
And you've been speaking about that a lot during the campaign, about you're a big proponent for bringing more jobs to our area.
I think it's complicated, but I think we need to work on making this economy a lot stronger. We have a lot of men, a lot of young men who tend to have to go to the oil rigs or truck drive to have a good career. And that's really the result of this economy not having the diversity that I think it needs. I think that we're very capable of having a lot more. of having engineering firms, of having hedge funds. We have really smart and talented people here, but we got to foster more of a diverse economy. And then we also need to have higher wages. Obviously, the minimum wage in the state is very low. So I think we need a living wage federally so that people throughout the country and in this district can afford to live. And when they're able to afford to live, they don't have to get SNAP. They don't have to get Medicaid. And maybe they don't have to leave the district.
Yeah, those are really good points. If you're getting paid enough, then you don't have to look for outside aid.
A lot of people, especially online, are saying that this economy is just very rough. People are not able to find the jobs that they can find in Houston, both the types of jobs and the pay. So I think that that's a big issue. People did point out, like in this economy, if you're not in healthcare, if you're not in a school district, if you're not in some type of trade or construction, there's not a lot that's a good job. And that's a big issue.
And then cuts going on. You want to talk about, we have done the math for your district.
Well, I think what was said at the panel was that all of it's interconnected. So if you have those Medicaid cuts, the healthcare industry is going to suffer economically. And then people who depend on healthcare jobs may not have the opportunities.
So let's dive into that further. I know you went to the Cost of Cuts event.
Yeah.
What were they specifically speaking about and how the economy is affected with all these cuts?
So that was super interesting because I think a lot of what I've already talked about is how everything's interconnected. And that's also a way that we can connect with people, having them understand how these things are connected and how things don't happen in isolation. And so one of the things that was really interesting was that someone on the panel mentioned that for every dollar of SNAP benefits, there's actually $1.80 of economic activity. So that was very interesting because we tend to think of these programs as, oh, we're just giving money. But it's not just giving money to people. It's also inducing economic activity. And it's actually inducing more economic activity than what you put in.
Right.
So that was super interesting because that's suggesting that it's actually an investment to help people with these benefits, the people who need it, obviously.
You're really running on you want to be people's voice.
Right.
Do you think the current representation is doing that for our area?
I don't think Monica de la Cruz honestly understands the issues. I don't think she's serious. And I don't think that she's doing anything to help people who need SNAP or need Medicaid. In fact, she's actually harming those people. And she did so when she voted for the Big Beautiful Bill.
You have to really know our area and understand what's going on. And I think you're seeing that on the road firsthand.
Yeah.
And speaking to everyone and their moms. We did talk about how the economy and affected you growing up.
Well, and I think that back then we actually didn't have as much support as we have now, at least before these cuts go through.
Right.
Growing up, we probably would have qualified for Medicaid if it was today, but we didn't have Medicaid. So we just didn't have health insurance, and we kind of cobbled together things, and mostly going to Mexico. I remember vomiting a lot and then being thrown into the car and traveling to Mexico
to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and coming back with some kind of pink liquid. Some tortillas as well.
Yeah, we all did that. I did that too. That's what was like the icing on the cake. You can get tortillas with avocado while you're getting in the car in the line to come home because you're better, so you can eat now. We've spoken about how the tenacity and the vision that your parents had, that even they knew that you had to be educated to have more opportunity.
Right.
And kudos to them.
Yeah.
For raising all you guys like that, because your brothers also went and did their thing. And
well, so I have 4 younger brothers. 3 of them have degrees. My brother Nathan, he has a bachelor's degree in English from UT Pan American. And then my 2 youngest brothers went to Stanford. And then they both have master's degrees, one from Northwestern and one from NYU.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, that's why you're so passionate about economy, because you may not have had the means.
One, it's interconnected. I feel like it's very much interconnected when we talk about these things. Even though we're technically talking about economic issues right now, we still touch on the other issues because they're so connected.
Because if there had been other funding or other programs available, you guys it would have been a little bit easier for you and your family.
And I will say that there are programs, or there were programs that did help us, at least with our education. I remember not really having to pay for the AP exam fees. I remember getting a Pell Grant, getting scholarships. And I know my youngest brothers who went to Stanford, they specifically got a full ride that was just need-based. And there are a lot of universities who are doing that now.
And that gave you the opportunity, but now we're having cuts.
I'm not sure how that's going to help us because it's all interconnected. And specifically with Medicaid, too, that also is going to affect the economy. Monica de la Cruz basically voted for the Big Beautiful Bill, and it's going to cut Medicaid. It's not only going to affect people who don't work or whatever they're trying to claim. It'll affect people ultimately that are working, who are disabled, who are elderly, and kids. And it ends up also affecting the economy, especially here. It's very healthcare dependent here. We have a lot of sickness, a lot of pathology here. So it's very much going to affect the industry. There's not going to be as much money to go around. And that's probably going to decrease the amount of healthcare jobs as well. One thing that's really interesting about this district is that about 41% of people depend on Medicaid. So obviously it's not going to be fully cut, but some people will be affected. And one story that I heard recently was about a woman who died young, left behind a young family, a young husband, 3 kids, and the kids have Medicaid now. And what's going to happen to them?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, hypothetically, maybe they'll be okay, but we don't know.
Right.
Speaking of the economy, so that reminds me that Monica de la Cruz had an ad last cycle where she was allegedly fighting inflation with a boxer. And that was ridiculous because she doesn't even understand how to fight inflation. She's done absolutely nothing to fight inflation. She has done nothing to push back on the crazy tariffs that Trump is passing.
Right. And it's affecting our area tremendously.
Food costs are not improving. I think maybe eggs have decreased in price, but most things have not decreased in price. And that's really affecting people who don't have a lot of money or who have a very small budget and there's not a lot of room.
We are developing a lot down here.
Yeah.
And I know that, just speaking of your grandparents, now it's coming back where our builders, our construction workers are getting really affected by these changes.
Yeah. So obviously the tariffs are affecting supplies. And then the other thing that's affecting the construction economy too is immigration.
And even restaurants.
The restaurants have been closing or they've had limited staff because a lot of them depend on immigrants to staff their kitchens, staff their restaurants in general.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot that's happening that's affecting the economy. And Monica de la Cruz basically is not doing anything.
You lose sleep on this because you're texting me very early or very late.
I've been losing sleep since launch. I don't know what's wrong with me now. I literally just think about the campaign, trying to figure out how we're going to talk to people, how we're going to explain the issues, how we're going to make lives better. And I wake up very early every day, even though I don't want to.
Speaking of Monica de la Cruz, remember the ad she had about this?
Yeah, another ridiculous one. In which she was in a grocery store and another person was shopping and complaining about the prices. And she was all about how she's going to decrease prices. And she's not doing anything.
Right.
She's not doing anything that would actually affect prices. Prices are not down in general. Maybe egg prices, but in general, most prices are up and people are struggling.
But she implied that she would do that.
It was ridiculous to even say that. And I knew it wasn't going to be true. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing that nothing has been done as far as improving prices for the most part. And the Big Beautiful Bill certainly won't help.
And people are struggling even more.
It's a really hard situation. I am certainly not going to promise that I'm going to decrease prices because I understand economics.
Right.
And it's not easy. All I can promise is to do the best that I can and try to provide people the help they need. And maybe things will get better over time.
When we decided to collaborate and I was going to help you, I liked how you really come from a servant's heart. You don't need a career.
Mm-hmm.
You're a doc, you know?
Right.
And you're ready to win. And you're ready to move the needle and to help your area. But I think that your why isn't a selfish why. It isn't because you need a career, you need a paycheck.
or about legacy or something like that. No, it's just about making things better. It affects me. It affects my daughter. It affects you. It affects my family. Having a country that is good, that works for everyone, is what I want. There's also the bigger picture story, like I talked about. Ever since I was 18, I came up with a plan to help my family. Even though I wanted to do other things, I wanted to write novels, and I still do. And I've got a bet with my brothers right now about a novel that I haven't written, a bet that I will lose. But it's been top of mind to help my family since 18, and I still think about that every day. Sometimes I honestly take for myself so that I can care for my family.
Well, I think it's innate in a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to know that that's where you're coming from. Why? That's your why.
And so I want my family to be taken care of. I want them to have good health care. I want them to have any help that they need. I know they work hard. There are caregivers. There are people who have worked hard their whole lives. And I don't like seeing struggles in them or in anyone.
Right.
Seems like a good time to end the pod for today.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on episode 2.
Yeah, and go to drcuellarforcongress.com if you want to learn more. And we'll talk to y'all soon.